year, those very church people would bring the box of canned foods right to our house. Let me tell you something about canned fucking foods. People give. They only give whatever they ain't gonna eat themselves, which really ain't giving shit. That's what sucked about fucking Hunger Barrels. Anytime somebody donates canned foods, they always dig way in the back of the shelves and give the shit like canned yams or creamed rice. All that shit nobody's gonna fucking eat. All that shit in them boxes we did at the house wasn't worth shit. Every once in a great while there'd be a fresh can of ravioli or some SpaghettiOs, but that was once in every blue fucking moon. The second the box would come every Thursday, my brother and I would attack it looking for something good like ravioli or SpaghettiOs. Every box we get would just have 1 or 2 cans of attackable food. The rest would be peas and corn and shit. Speaking of canned foods, ICP has done many canned food drives over the years, and we always made sure to tell ninjas, bring only the good shit, only the raviolis and SpaghettiOs and beefaronis. No bullshit foods allowed, no yams, no peas or any shit like that. Only the good shit like meatball meteors and creamy loopy lumps with cheese, all that good shit. My mom had promised to never get married again, but she did start dating. One night she was going out with this guy who drove a big custom van. Before they left to go out one night, my mom sent him to the party store to get us some pop. He asked if I wanted to go. I went with him, which turned out to be a major mistake. Right when we pulled out of the driveway, he turned up the radio piercingly loud. I'm talking crazy fucking treble loud. I thought his windows were gonna shatter. I went into the store and bought my 2-liter of Faygo because it was the cheapest. Back, the guy could see I didn't like the music that fucking loud. So when I got out of the van, he said, "Hey kid, sorry about the tunes. Do me a favor and don't tell." I went into the store and right when we pulled out of the driveway, he turned up the radio piercingly loud. I'm talking crazy fucking treble loud. I thought his windows were gonna shatter. I went into the store and bought my 2-liter of Faygo because it was the cheapest. On the way back, the guy could see I didn't like the music that fucking loud. So when I got out of the van, he said, "Hey kid, sorry about the tunes. Do me a favor and don't tell your mom about it, okay?" My mom got her keys and asked me how the trip to the store was. I had to be honest. "Did he have to play the music that loud, Mom?" I complained. I didn't think anything of it, neither did she. It was no fucking big deal at all until later that it was the cheapest. On the way back, the guy could see I didn't like the music that fucking loud. So when I got out of the van, he said, "Hey kid, sorry about the tunes. Do me a favor and don't tell your mom about it, okay?" My mom got her keys and asked me how the trip to the store was. I had to be honest. "Did he have to play the music that loud, Mom?" I complained. I didn't think anything of it, neither did she. It was no fucking big deal at all until later that night. It was really hot in my bedroom, but I finally fell asleep. I must have been tossing and turning all fucking night because my pajamas were completely off me. I guess I was sleeping there butt naked with my pants lying around my feet. Suddenly, slap! A big painful slap woke me up out of a dead sleep. I had no idea what the fuck was happening. I opened my eyes and there was my mom's date standing over me, ready to bitch slap me again, hissing at me. You could smell the whiskey on this motherfucker's breath. "I told you to shut the fuck up and not tell your mom." Being single with 3 kids and as overweight as my mom was, it was going to be hard for her to find Mr. Right. And this dude was Mr. Wrong and a can of Spam. He straight up slapped the shit out of me naked. All I remember was trying to pull my pants up, but he kept hitting me. That fucking sucked. Now ever since that very naked. All I remember was trying to pull my pants up, but he kept hitting me. That fucking sucked. Now ever since that very night, I never sleep naked. To this day I refuse to. It's not because I'm a fat ass, it's more because you never know what could happen in the middle of the night. And if someone's breaking into your house or something like that happens, you don't want to be fighting the ninja butt naked. It's easier to have your pants on. Chapter 3, The Floobs. We may have been the scrubby losers during middle school and then high school, but we turned it around and made it cool to be a scrub. Of course, it wasn't cool to anybody else, but it was cool to us. We gave us scrubs and scrubs like us our own name, the Floobs. Before there were juggalos, you see, there were Floobs. We wore the same old shoes and shitty clothes from rummage sales, but to us, we didn't have to be cool because we were Floobs. Everybody else had dope-ass bikes. You remember mongooses and super gooses? Well, we never had no shit like that. But if you had a beat-up Huffy with a banana seat and a steering wheel for handlebars, then you had a Floob-mobile. We turned our scrubbiness into something we could be proud of. Not everybody, though, was as proud of it as we were. There was a kid named Scott who used to play role-playing games with my brother. He didn't like to be seen with the Flooby Bruce brothers at school. So one morning after spending the night at our house, he had my mom drop him off 2 blocks away from the school. He didn't want to be seen getting out of my mom's car, let alone with us Bruce brothers. Years later, after school was long over and he was in the army, he apologized for that. Us, we used to have our mom pull us right up to the fucking school doors in her blue rust bucket. Woo! We fucking loved it. We gave no fucks at all about none of that flavor. Everybody would say,
"Ah, look at your mom's car."
We'd be climbing out in our fresh-ass hand-me-down rummage sale track shoes and be like, damn right, man. Truth is that we had no choice but to wave our scrub flag everywhere we went because we were scrubs, and that's just the way things were for the Bruce brothers. One day, my mom and sister were fighting as usual. They started throwing each other down the stairs. The people under us called the landlady, and they held the phone up to the ceiling. Our landlady could hear the fighting and all the crazy-ass noise. The next day, we got a phone call informing us we were getting kicked out. Who gave a fuck? We hated that apartment, especially the mean married couple underneath us. The guy was a bodybuilder, and he always yelled at us for doing laundry when he was in the shower. I guess the water would go cold on him or whatever. He always banged broom when the TV was too loud. That fucking flat ceiling with a broom when the TV was too loud. That fucking flat sucked to live in. Just to get to the basement laundry machine, we had to walk out the front door, walk all the way down the driveway and into the backyard through the snow and all the way to the back door. We were just happy to have a laundry machine though. Right about the same time we were getting kicked out of our flat in Berkeley, my mom met another guy. She really liked him. His name was Ron. Ron fell in love with my mom right away. My mom is a warrior of a woman, and she has been to hell and back. I think you know that by now. I think Ron respected that. My mom loved Ron as well. You see, Ron has been to hell and back too. His life story is a whole nother book's worth of adventures. So they were in love, and we were happy for our mom. Of course, at first, Ron gave us the whole deal of being extra cool and nice by bringing over chips and food and shit, but we always figured he was just wasting his time. We never figured our mom would actually marry again after that last asshole. Ron was way different though. He dated my mom for a long ass time without ever talking about marriage. My mom was in desperate need of help, and Ron was there for her. Bills were stacking up higher and higher. Teresa was still on the loose, and now we were getting booted out on our asses. Things were looking really bad, but Ron really sort of saved us. He helped us out in many ways. Before long, my mom was asking us if we would consent to her getting married again. I was about 11 by this time. I felt a little bit older now, and I figured I could defend myself if things went bad again, so I didn't mind. Plus, all I really ever wanted was my mom to be happy. My brother Rob seemed upset about it at first, but he too was more concerned about our mom being happy than anything else. My sister, of course, was out and about on the streets, and I think my mom just needed a person to help her get through it all. Get through all that insanity. We needed to find a new place to live. My mom had had just about ran out of options. We couldn't afford to stay in Berkeley anymore, so she and Ron found a house to rent in Oak Park, Michigan. A lot of people we knew suddenly took pity on us as if we were never to return. Here's how it works, sort of. The entire northern Detroit area is separated by mile roads. The higher the number the mile road, the farther you are from Detroit. Mile roads 5 up to 8 mile are actually in Detroit city limits. From 8 mile to 10 mile, it's pretty much the bordering trashy suburbs. From 10 mile all the way out to something like 28 mile road are suburban, safe and friendly, I guess. Our new house in Oak Park, Michigan, just off 9 Mile Road, might as well have been in fucking Compton as far as the other kids in Berkeley were concerned. All they talked about was how dangerous and deadly it was south of 10 Mile. I have to be honest, y'all, my brother and I really truthfully didn't give a fuck where we lived. Oak Park, Berkeley, Moscow, fucking whatever. It was all the same to us. As soon as we moved in, my mom and Ron got married, and right away we got a new dog that we love named Lady. As time went on, we learned that Ron was basically a decent ninja. He was a little bit stale in a few ways, but nothing too bad. He was a Vietnam vet, and Rob and I really looked up to him for that. He endured a lot of combat and saw a lot of it over there. That deserves big respect. The only real flaw was that at home, he would complain about dumb shit all the time. Shit that really didn't matter at all. Dumb shit like our dog Lady being up on the couch. He didn't like Lady on the furniture. Why the fuck not? Our furniture was poked with holes in it and tore up any fucking way. Ron also didn't like us feeding Lady table food. The whole time growing up with Ron, I must admit, I never once listened to him. After a while, Lady knew that when she heard Ron coming, it was time to get off the couch. The second Ron was gone, or he went in his room or whatever, she would jump right back up on the couch. It was just funny to us. By the time Ron came into our lives, to be honest, I think I was just finished with the whole having a dad thing anyway. I pretty much ignored all of his household laws. Nowadays, I respect and love him for staying with my mom and helping us out so much all them years. He was by far the best dad I ever had. We weren't leaving behind very much in Berkeley. We only had a few so-called friends. My only Berkeley homie was named Mike Olson. He wasn't much of a friend, but nobody was back then. Mike wouldn't talk to me in school very much, but during the weekends and summertime, he would come around and hang out. Nobody wanted to be seen hanging with the notorious Bruce Brothers in Berkeley, so I understood. Just a few days before we moved, Mike Olson was chilling at our house while we were packing up all our shit. He had the biggest bunch of Transformer toys that he had been collecting for years. My brother had this one fresh-ass Transformer that Mike didn't have yet. Every time Mike came over, he would jock the hell out of it. Suddenly, Rob shocked us all.
We're moving, so you might as well take it, he said. What? No fucking way, are you serious?
Mike asked. Rob was cool like that. Mike loved that toy more than Rob did, so he just gave it up to him. Mike took it with the quickness. We knew it was the last time we'd ever see him.
My mom ain't gonna let me visit you guys in Oak Park,
Mike said.
There's a lot of trouble around there.
Caddying was how we started to learn just how different being poor and being rich was. I'd be out caddying for these golfers in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon and I'd ask them flat out, "Are you rich?" And they'd be like, "Oh, I'm not rich, I'm just average." We'd be sitting there at 12 years old thinking, wait a minute, how the fuck can he be average? If he's average, then what's he calling me, poor? This golfer don't have the right to be calling himself average. He should be claiming himself rich, that fucking bastard. He's out there golfing on a Tuesday afternoon at a private country club in Birmingham, pulling up in a Cadillac. He's fucking rich. Let me be the average guy. Homeless people are poor, motherfucker. Shit. Because if he's average, that's calling me poor, and I got a roof over my head. Rich people don't think before they talk. I use that as my motto through life right now. Now every time somebody asks me if I'm rich, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm mad fucking rich. I'm richer now than them golfers were, so I'm super rich. Yes, I, Joe Bruce, am rich. These golfers God, they were assholes. This one guy, Mr. Santee, used to whip his clubs at us when he'd fuck up a shot. I swear I'm not making this up. He would actually whip his clubs at me as if I had anything to do with his shitty golfing. I always got Mr. Santee because none of the caddies would do it. Sometimes the golfers would have a cart and you would have to run behind it after they hit their ball. Those carts went up to 15 miles an hour. The whole while you were running your ass off, the golfers would be sitting there driving as they sipped on lemonade, talking about how shitty the caddies are these days. The caddy master would give all the good gigs to everybody but me and my brother, and yup, the black kids. Some days, we'd sit there on the bench all fucking day and not get a single loop. We'd play Galaga, the arcade game, because that was the only game they had in the caddy shack. That's why I own Galaga in my house today. I fucking still love it. I could make $80 a week though, which at the time was a fortune. All I did with that $80 was buy Atari games and a ninja suit. I'd get home and ninja around the neighborhood all night on my imaginary secret ninja missions. Anything to get me out of reality. My brother was the same way. The reality was, we were still geeks. We were fucked with at school and fucked within the caddy shack. Look at us now as ICP. We're still scrubs. No Grammys, no Hollywood parties, no celebrity appearances, none of that. ICP just doesn't count. Even after selling 8 million fucking albums, we just don't count. It's in our blood for eternity. We're gonna be the fucking underdog no matter what happens in our lives. People always used to say, you'll never make it cause you wear that stupid clown makeup. Now they say, the only reason you made it this far is because you wear that stupid clown makeup. You think people hate us now? God, they hated us up in that caddy shack. Why? Not because we were poor, but because we were loud. Because we said what was on our minds. Oh, and we'd go on our ninja adventures and then show up for work and tell everybody about them. Even if they didn't want to hear it. Those who did listen didn't believe us. Nobody believed us.
We climbed up to the top of a billboard last night.
Shut up.
We did. It was the shit, you know?
Shut up. I kinda got used to being treated like shit, and pretty soon in true Floob style, I had being treated like shit working for me instead of against me. I was broke one day as usual, so I went up to the older caddies.
Man, I'm so thirsty, please let me get $1 and I'll pay you back when I get my check.
They all knew I could breakdance because I was always telling them how I could dance like Michael Jackson. Then one of them said, "You want some money for free? Let me see you do the worm." The other caddies all got the golfers to circle around me while I did the worm. I was on a black wet carpet, so my white clothes got all dirty and shitty. I got the money though, and I was straight with that. Fuck my clothes. One caddy especially was an extra dick. He'd push us around and pimp my brother and me all day, smack our hats off, push us in the back, bullshit like that. He was always surrounded by a crew of his Richie fuck friends. One night, just like every night, we were sitting up in the caddy shack. Suddenly, here comes that bully coming back from a late loop. Everybody else had gone home, so it was just my brother, him, and me. We were gaining courage now in life, cause when you get hit enough times, you tend to start hitting back. This would be the last day he'd ever fuck with us. We got up and grabbed him and took him in the back of that caddy shack. Nobody else was around. "We should kick your butt right now," my brother said, and bam, he suddenly hit him low in the stomach. I came across and started punching him in the face, and then we started kicking him when he was on the ground. All our frustration was released by giving him a well-deserved beatdown. The kid was hurt bad and scared shitless, cowering on the floor in a ball, trying to protect his head. "Say you're a punk," my brother screamed in his ear, until he finally said it. I jumped in.
"Now that you ain't got your boys here, you ain't shit. And if you ever try to fuck with us again, we'll shatter your skull with a putter, motherfucker."
Of course, I'm telling the story with cuss words, but believe it or not, we still weren't cussing yet. We were about 12 and 14 years old with 8-year-old mouths. That was the first heroic move my brother and I ever made together, And our whole outlook started to change that day. Instead of taking abuse as a flube, I vowed I'd start blowing people's grills out. We were in Oak Park and nobody knew we were losers there. Not like back in Berkeley.
We got a chance to get out of this, I told Rob. Let's not be afraid anymore.
My sister, meanwhile, had a baby and moved to a city called Taylor in an area of Detroit known as Downriver. The baby was named Angela. That was finally the turning point for my sister, thank God. At least she was slowing down. She lived in the Pine Ridge Apartments, and they were the absolute worst section of Taylor. It was a total crack haven. The dealers would flick lighters when you drove up, meaning they had some product for sale. My sister lived way in the back of the complex, so when we'd visit, it didn't matter that the streetlights were shot out. Everybody would just flip their lighters as my mom drove through. I can't front, that shit was scary as hell. To make a very long story about my sister short, giving birth to her first daughter, Angela, was the beginning of the end of that 5-year wave of hell she put us through. Today, she's got 4 kids, Angie, Sarah, Daniel, and Amanda, and she lives in a nice town north of Detroit called Clarkston. She's sort of taken the place as my mom as the leader of the family. We have all the holiday festivities at her house, and she has a wonderful husband named Randy, and she totally has her shit together. I'm so happy to see her come out of all that on such a good side and in such a good way. What hell she went through. It's such a shame she had to go through that. Just right, and that's awesome. Our way of escaping life had always been and still was through non-reality. There was a big undeveloped plot 11 and 12 mile road about 3 miles from our house that was filled with picker bushes and tall trees. My brother named it Picker Forest. Nowadays, it's just a freeway and what little is left of the forest. Back then, though, I swear to God, it was like a whole nother world to us, and it was all ours. Sometimes I think God gave us that place. Without it, we would have never had the anchor to hold us in place. Picker Forest was our home away from home, Flube headquarters. It was truly, truly magical. With my mom still spending all her time helping my sister and her baby, it was up to Picker Forest to raise us. There were ghosts and spirits in there, I shit you not. One time we were walking through Picker Forest and we found this little yellow house. I had a golf ball in my pocket that I found earlier. I threw it through the basement window. The window was already broken out and I just wanted to see how deep it was. Plop. We heard the ball go in, and all of a sudden, it came back up to the window and stayed there, right in the middle of the window, right in midair, floating in the dark. Somebody was in all black down there, had caught it and was holding it back up to us. We were so scared we ran back up to the window and stayed there. Right in the darkness. It was like somebody was in all black down there, had caught it and was holding it back up to us. We were so scared we ran like motherfuckers. We never ever found that yellow house again. It was so weird. We looked for it so many times. We brought people with us trying to find it, and no matter what, how hard we searched, we could never find that little house again. It was like it was only there for the day. Another time we brought a kid with us who'd never been there before. About a half hour into our trek though, he started freaking out.
Holy shit, I've been here in another life. I've been here in another life,
he kept saying. Then he turned around and started heading to a part of the forest we'd never been to.
Follow me, he shouted. I'm gonna take you to a yellow fire hydrant and you can unscrew the top of it.
We didn't know what the hell he was talking about. The fact was nobody had ever been there before, but he was having some kind of past life experience, so he led us all the way across the forest to this dirt road that was a dead end on both sides. It didn't make any sense. It was just a strip of road surrounded by trees. Right there was this yellow fire hydrant, just like he said. And you know how you can't normally unscrew them? We grabbed the top and started turning it, and it came off just like that. Just like he said it would. Unfucking believable. We also found bum camps deep in the forest and a radio tower that was ringed up by a fence that we always feared was electric. One time we saw a wizard on the and he just disappeared into a puff of smoke. We saw kinds of crazy shit like that in Picker Forest. It was a place of magic. We made beware signs out of wood boards using my brother's wood burning set that he got for Christmas, and we nailed them to trees all on the outskirts of the forest to warn people of the possible dangers. Picker Forest became our escape from being geeks in the real world because nobody judged us there. Nothing showed me what a geek I was more than when I fell in love with this girl, Michelle Harmon, in the 7th grade. I met her one day on the playground when I was trying to break the ice on the bottom of the slide. She came up and started helping me break the ice. I had game, I felt like. I had a revelation. Why was she helping me break the ice? She must have had feelings for me, I thought. She was absolutely beautiful. I may have failed the 2nd grade, but by now I was smart enough to know this girl had to like me if she came over to help me break the ice off the slide, so I thought. Fuck, man. I was so into her, I put on my snowmobile suit, head to toe, and walked back and forth in front of her house. I made a whole city out of milk cartons with little windows cut out of paper and everything, and named it after her, Harmon City. Finally, I got my sister's cassette deck and recorded an hour tape of me pouring my heart out to Michelle about how I felt. I gave it to her in school the next day. That was on a Friday. The weekend that followed was the longest weekend of my life. Man, y'all truly, really gotta believe me. I was truly in love with this girl for a long time, and this love was deep. I know I was only in 7th grade, but man, I had authentic, real feelings for this girl. The following Monday, she handed me back a different cassette. I couldn't wait to get home and listen to it. I put it in and pushed play, just geeked as hell. Right away I could hear my tape going in the background.
Hello, Michelle, this is Joe Bruce.
And right after that, the unmistakable sound of girls laughing. Not just laughing, but laughing at me. They were giggling and quoting all the things I was saying, busting on me like I was the joke of their little slumber party. Then it happened. Michelle said,
Hey, Joe Bruce, this is what I think of you.
She cut a fucking fart. Now, I don't know what the fuck y'all are thinking, but I have never heard a bitch fart in my life, ever. It was like an unwritten law that they don't fart in front of guys. So for her to fart at me like that, that really showed me how much she gave a fuck about me. She didn't give 2 shits about me to actually fart at me. That shit destroyed me. I was traumatized. That weekend, my brother and I filled our canteens and headed out to the only place of peace, Picker Forest, just the 2 of us. It started pouring rain, and pretty soon there was a river with all this mud, and there was a big vine, and we swung on that vine right into the mud river. It took me right out of that Michelle tape slump. All I thought of was all the kids in our neighborhood. They could be at the skating rink, the arcade, or wherever, but we were here. We were in our spot, deep in the middle of Picker Forest. This was our muddy, dark forest full of ghosts, the only place we felt at home. My brother and I walked home wet and muddy, and I realized right then when I tried to talk to that beautiful girl, when I fucked with the real world, I got burned. However, Picker Forest rewarded me. It told me things were gonna be okay. The spirits of Picker Forest had our backs. No matter where we were from then, Picker Forest always had our backs. I realize now that this was the beginning of the Dark Carnival. I saw too many miracles happen out there in Picker Forest not to believe that there wasn't a different kind of power at work in this world. Not the world of everybody else, but our world. The golf ball, the kid who thought he was there in the past life, the wizard that disappeared off the roof. These were the spirits that came from the dark carnival. Only back then, we didn't have a name for it yet. It was there though. It was happening all around us. It was with us all along. Us. It also kept us out of the house. When we did have to go home, we preferred to stay outside. We developed our version of sumo wrestling. We called it the Japanese Olympics. I'd stay out for hours kung fu fighting. If we were inside, it was just to watch Charlie Rum's Kung Fu Theater on Channel 20. Even then, each and every commercial break, we'd jump outside and start kung fu battling right quick. Anything not to have to stay in the house for that long. I didn't want to deal with what was going on in there. My mom crying, fighting with my sister, yelling on the phone. Rob and I stayed away from it all. We went from having a fucked up childhood to having the greatest childhood imaginable. One within the realm of Picker Forest and our own imaginations and our own realities of the dark carnival. Of the dark carnival. Greatest childhood imaginable, one within the realm and our own imaginations and our own. And each and every commercial break, being a fucked up childhood to having the greatest childhood imaginable. One within the realm of Picker Forest and our own imaginations and our own realities of the dark carnival. Realities of the dark carnival. The show on the microphone. We're the JJ boys on the microphone stand, and we're kicking it live with a Fago in her hand. Master T's on the table, not working in the stable, and on his Adidas jacket is the Fago label. This part of the rhyme is for Jagged Joe. When I'm on the mic, I steal the show. All my girly friends chasing me down the hall. I don't smoke dope or drink alcohol. This part of the rhyme is for Kango Joe, known to the crew as the leader of the show. Kango on his head, Adidas on his feet, gold around his neck so that he looks like Mr. T. This last part is for Master J. He rocks on the mic and he sleeps all day. He's always drinking Fago, and that's a fact. And if you've got beef, better change your act. That's the old school JJ boys. Yeah, little rap for you. Anyway, chapter 4, JJ boys in the Royal Oak Township. Shit was different in Oak Park. Walking to school one day during the 7th grade, we saw a naked lady run out of the house with her hands tied, screaming that she'd been raped. No lie, she was butthole naked, and she looked halfway decent as I remember, but it wasn't decent that her hands were tied and she was screaming that she'd just been raped. When I got to the school, the police were everywhere asking all the students if they saw everything. Welcome to Oak Park, I guess. I tried to adapt, but I was still a floob. Best junior high was made up of about 60% black kids, 20% Middle Eastern kids, and 20% white kids. There were a lot of tough black kids who picked on me. The black kids basically ran the school. They were the ones you don't fuck with. I was trying to be a little less flooby by wearing these patent leather basketball shoes that my brother had bought me. This one kid would just fuck with me, calling me Captain Patty because of my patent leather, and just generally giving me shit. I figured it wasn't that bad because this dickhead had picked on everybody. He was a big ass kid for being a 7th or 8th grader. He looked like a fucking grown ass man with a beard and everything. I don't know what the fuck the deal was. He'd always come up behind me in the hallway and knock my books out of my hands, then kick them down the hallway and laugh about it with his boys every day. My rage was building until I decided I was gonna do something about it. One day, I was walking down the hall and saw him coming behind me. I thought, shit, here he comes again. That's when I saw the principal, Dr. Sophia, was coming the other way. So I figured the dickhead wouldn't try anything and would be relaxed. Then, as soon as Dr. Sophia walked past us, bam! I spun around and punched him as hard as I could, right in the chest. He folded up on the floor in pain, dropping his book in his hand. The girl he was walking with got this surprised look on her face as I kicked his book down the hall. That was the shit. That was my moment of revenge, baby. That's when I socked an air out of his chest. He folded up like a fucking paper bag. Then I turned back around and continued walking, surprised that I had the courage to do what I just did. I looked back and saw ninjas just stepping over him as they walked. We both tried to avoid each other after that for the rest of the school year, which was just fine with me. I never forgot that. I still haven't forgot it. I tried to mimic that a lot in my life. That element of surprise when you pull something off but you do it in broad daylight. Kind of like when a venue tells us only to throw 50 bottles of Faygo and we wind up emptying the fucking truck on that gig. Surprise, bitch. Getting picked on sucked enough, but on top of that, I didn't know anybody in the whole school. I thought I recognized this one kid from my school back in Berkeley, so I walked up to him. "Did you go to school in Berkeley last year?" I asked. "Yeah. What's your name?" "John Usler." "What's up?" "I'm Joe Bruce." "You know anybody at this school?" he asked. "No, I don't know nobody." We both didn't know anybody in Oak Park. Right then, I started hanging out with John and his little brother Joey, who was 2 years younger than us, and who, of course, would eventually become the one and only Shaggy 2 Dope. Joey and John lived in Ferndale, but they used their dad's address in Oak Park so they could go to Oak Park schools. Long before we started rapping, we formed our first backyard and living room wrestling federation, the TTW, Tag Team Wrestling. This was in like 1986, so all you biters and haters who think ICP are on backyard wrestling's dick, just know that we were doing this shit back when those jackass marks were crying because Wham broke up. We decided we'd build a wrestling ring in John and Joey's mom's house in the backyard. We built it out of 4 big-ass railroad logs that we got from the nearby train tracks and carried them all the way back to John and Joey's house in Ferndale. We pounded them into the ground with sledgehammers. It took weeks, no lie. It rained a lot, so the ground softened up, but still, it was hard as hell. It was an undertaking for junior high kids to pound those big-ass thick railroad stakes into the dirt. Pounding, 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 over and over and over. Our arms were feeble, our backs were weak, but we kept pounding, pounding, until all 4 of those fuckers were stuck deep in the ground, solid. Oh, but we weren't done yet. Then we wrapped garden hose around the logs for ropes. You could climb the ropes and everything. We were mad proud of what we had built. John and Joey and their old school friend Jamie and I now had this bomb-ass TTW ring set up. I'd walk the 3 miles to it every day like, yo, I get to wrestle in a wrestling ring. We said, no black kids allowed. Not because we were racist or anything like that. We were far too young to even be racist or even know what a racist was. We only said that because they were too tough. In school, they were always the ones kicking everybody's ass and stronger than anybody else. Now, we weren't being racist, we just didn't want to get killed. The bottom line was, we thought the black kids were just too ruthless for our young, stupid asses. There was one kid in particular named Dion McCrae, who was the most ruthless, heartless, scantless motherfucker I'd ever known in my life. He walked down the hall with his pants sagging, and people would just move out of his way. He was a ruthless killer in the eyes of everybody at school. One day, this kind of fat white girl said something to him, and he punched her so hard, her eyes swelled shut. Dion bragged about it like, I'll punch that bitch again. A shop teacher overheard him and got so mad that he actually attacked Dion himself and got fired for it. Dion was a true ghetto thug all day. I'll never forget and still have nightmares about Dion McCrae. So when we said no black kids, we didn't mean it in any racist way. We just thought that the toughest kids were all black and they would kick our ass all the time. Until we met Lacey, the township. In school, John and I used to wrestle each other on these gym mats every day during gym class, and this black kid named Lacey always watched us. He came up to us one day and asked, "How do you guys know how to wrestle so good?" We told him we had our own wrestling ring and everything, and he asked if he could wrestle with us, and I said, "No, because you're black." He laughed. He knew what I meant. The black kids ran the school. Everybody else just got pimped on. So we started to wrestle Lacey every day in gym class, and then we started hanging out. That's how I got introduced to the township, the Royal Oak Township. It was this really poor area that bordered Detroit. The township is just like Detroit's version of Compton. Hanging out with Lacey in the township was my first experience with a bad neighborhood. I met this one crazy kid named Snoopy, who was a little bit older than us and crazy as hell. He amazed me. He once shot himself in the arm with a rifle accidentally and poured rock salt in it while we watched. It was crazy. He actually poured the rock salt right in the bullet room. I couldn't fucking believe it. The township was full of characters like Snoopy. Lacey, Snoopy, and I, we all grew tight as fuck. The township even had its own language. Neddin', for instance, was a township term for pussy. So now you finally know what the fuck I'm talking about in the first sentence of this book. As new as all this was to me, it was also kind of familiar. The township kids were all on welfare and got food from the hunger barrel. It felt like a whole neighborhood of Bruce Brothers, no lie. Still, it was always white boy this and white boy that. I took the bus there every day trying to gain acceptance. I loved the township because it was always exciting, even if there was bad shit going down. One day, I brought my dog Lady down to the township when Lacey and them had their pit bulls out. When I got there, it was just in time to see this one kid's dog had locked its jaws on the head of another kid's dog. It shook that fucking dog so hard its whole body was flying through the air. I turned around and took Lady right the fuck back home. Fuck all that. The township was even a bad neighborhood for dogs, I guess. The plan was we were all gonna take our dogs for a walk together, but after I saw that shit, right back home with Lady. Lady was way too weak for any of that pit bullshit. When I came back later that day, something happened that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Lacey and Snoopy were walking their pits. We got to this one big open field and they let their dogs go. Them dogs ran off into some bushes. Then we heard the sound of some fighting. The dogs had found a nest of stray puppies and killed them all. By the time we got there, they were chewing on the puppies' heads. It was the worst crunching sound I'd ever heard. I started crying inside, but Lacey kept punching me. "Get it together, bro," he said. Every once in a while nowadays, I'll hear my dog chewing on a bone or something, and it'll remind me of that same sound. That horrible sound of them dogs' jaws scraping on them puppies' heads. I fucking hated Lacey and Snoopy's dogs after that. They always kept them in their backyards, and I used to feel sorry for them, but after that I didn't care about them. Leave them tied up in the backyard. Them fucking dogs deserved it. That sound was horrifying. I'll never forget that crunching noise. I can hear it in my head right now, and it's giving me chills of staleness through my entire gumpy body. Eventually, we talked Lacey's mom into letting us build a ring in their backyard too. Now we'd have 2 rings we could wrestle in back and forth from like we were on tour every night. This time, however, we didn't have the same patience to pound them logs in all day, so Lacey's ring turned out kinda shitty. One day while we were building it, I suddenly felt a ruthless ass sharp pain in my leg. This kid had thrown a brick all the way over the top of Lacey's house and into the backyard where it nailed me right in the fucking leg. It tore a big ass chunk out of my calf. Shit like that happened to me all the time in the township. See, in a township you never knew exactly what to expect, but you could always expect trouble. Like one morning Lacey wasn't around, so I went over to Snoopy's house across the street. He greeted me with, "Don't move." He was on his roof with a rifle. Despite what he said, I knew I'd better move. I jumped behind this abandoned blue van that was always in their driveway. Snoopy started yelling, "I'm gonna shoot you, I swear to God. Come out here. I'm gonna shoot you in the leg." "Why, dog? What the fuck did I do?" I yelled from behind the van. "'Cause I'm crazy," he said. I knew he was too. I'd seen him shoot himself in the arm and then pour the rock salt in the hole, remember? Shit, he was crazy. There was no question he was gonna shoot me in the leg or the arm or something just to do it. I knew I'd never turn him in for it. I was way too hard on his nuts. I looked at the van and saw there was a pile of carpet, all wet and moldy. I opened the back doors, picked up that pile of shit, as soggy and heavy as it was, and put it over me and ran. Pat, pat! Snoopy fired shots at me twice. I felt the bullets go into the pile of shit I was carrying like little tugs. It didn't hit me though. I didn't stop to find out how close they came. I just ran all the way home smelling like that moldy ass carpet shit. That was the township though. Some days I was having mad fun, other days I'm getting shot at and somebody else is having the fun. Still, I took that shit from them. I didn't have any anger. Just like how I was molested as a kid, but it never rained on my brain yet. Taking shit was just a part of my life. I'd always been that way. I never knew any different. The truth is, I was hanging out in the township because them kids were crazy. Because their families were as broke as mine. My brother stayed in touch with his crew back in Berkeley, and he was always playing Dungeons and Dragons and shit with them. He spent a lot of time with them role-playing ninjas. I could never understand the role-playing manuals, so I just hung out in the township or wrestled with John, Joey, and Lacey. As much as I thought I was down with the township, I soon realized I was still a bitch to them. One day, I went over to this kid Arnell's house. When I walked in the door, I was greeted with, "Alright, hold up." He stuck a gun in my mouth. In fact, there were 3 kids pointing their guns at me, pushing me against the door. "Can you get a car?" one of them asked. Great, they wanted me to help them do a drive-by shooting. My mom would always let my brother drive her car, this big yellow bucket. I called up Rob to see if he could get it. "Bring over mom's car, we're gonna do a drive-by shooting." I didn't know why, but my brother was down. I don't know what the fuck we were thinking. I think we were both hungry to prove ourselves as thugs or something. I really don't know what the fuck was going on in our minds. Anyway, he came over in my mom's car and we rolled through the township. Our tactic was to drive by this kid's house 4 or 5 times real slow. On the 6th pass, Arnell said, "Okay, stop." And he and Snoopy and the other kid got out. Pap, pap, pap. They just started shooting this house up. We were actually shooting the house up from behind. We were in an open field shooting the back of the house. Their guns were like everything from new guns to these taped up pieces of shit that miraculously didn't blow up in their hands. Afterwards, we dropped them all off back at Arnell's house, which was actually just a block or 2 away from the shooting. We drove back to our house feeling all cool, but we were so fucking stupid. If we'd have been caught, I'd still be in jail today probably. Thinking about that, nobody died, nobody was home as it turned out. But looking back, I realized they just used these stupid dumbass wannabe gangster kids for their car. God, when my mom hears this, she's gonna have a heart attack. At this point, I was like 15 and leading a double life. I'd wrestle with John and Joey in their backyards doing TTW during the weekends in Ferndale, and during the week, I'd take the school bus home from school to the township. After the drive-by though, I wanted to avoid the township for a minute. I knew inside that what we did was seriously fucked up, and it was a seriously low, dumb moment in my brain, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I couldn't avoid what we had done. Even though the house was empty, the fact that we let them use my mom's car, and the fact that we actually went through with that shit was burning at my brain, and from time to time as an adult, it still burns at my brain. By now, the thing John and Joey and I were getting heavily into besides wrestling was rap. UTFO, the Ghetto Boys, the Beastie Boys' first album, Run DMC's Tougher Than Leather was out by then. It started to really change us. In 1988, NWA and the Posse's record changed our life forever. Back in Berkeley, all the kids listened to was Poison and hair metal. I had been listening to Michael Jackson's Bad, and I learned how to dance like him. We even had a whack-ass little breakdance crew like everybody else did. My name was Footwork. Now in Oak Park, only the black kids and us were into rap. I remember sitting in John's room listening to UTFO's Roxanne, Roxanne over and over again. Rap music like Picker Forest seemed like it was just our thing. I started dressing the part too. My brother was working at a restaurant by now, and I talked him into buying us fresh clothes like Kango tracksuits and patent leather shoes. We would hit up the rummage sale looking for anything Adidas, old or new, it didn't matter. I'd be wearing fuzzy-ass old man golf shorts just because they had an Adidas logo on them. It's hard to imagine now, cause it's been different for so long. But back in the day, if you were white, you were fucking white. Fucking tight ass jeans, feathered hair, mullet, like my sister used to dress in her boyfriends. Me, I'd walk down the hallway at Best Junior High in my Adidas sweats with gold stripes, big ass fake gold chains on from the flea market, and an old ass Kango hat Snoopy's dad gave me. For the first time in our lives, we were attempting not to be scrubs, to totally adapt to a certain style. Even if we were the only white kids doing it, that was still a style, and it was our style. We started to act a part too. Mike D from the Beastie Boys was wearing that Volkswagen medallion on License to Ill, and snatching hood ornaments became mad popular for us. Look, I got a Cadillac, I got a BMW, I got a fucking Mercedes. Walk down the street with a pair of pliers, pull it out, your boy snaps it and pop, it'd be yours. Nobody stole more hood emblems than Joey. That was his life, that was all he did, night after night after night. He had 4 suitcases full of them hood ornaments. So we took them up to this flea market because we heard they'd buy them from us. They didn't buy shit, not one of them. So we had ornaments laying all over Joey's bedroom, everywhere, all over the floor. There was a shed in the back of John and Joey's house where we used to have a clubhouse. Hood emblems hanging on the walls everywhere. We were tagging too as the Krylon Boys. Graffiti was also popular in the hood, so we jumped on that as well. We didn't hit abandoned buildings though. We'd spray paint the underpass of I-696 and I-75, the busiest freeway intersection in Detroit. My tag name was Fago Joe because I always had a Fago in my hand. The Beastie Boys used to talk about White Castle a lot. Run DMC always talked about Adidas, so we had Fago. Fago runs deep in ICP lore. I've always explained it a million times, but you can't have the story of ICP without the Fago story. Fago was and is the ghetto pop of Detroit. Pop's a regional thing, not soda, but pop. That's what we called it in Detroit. Anyway, Fago's cheap as hell. It's always available in these crazy ass flavors. Moon Mist, Red Pop, Rock and Rye. Now they got cotton candy. So it kind of fit our whole flube thing. You could take 6 empty bottles back up to the store and get a new Fago 2-liter for 59 cents. We'd wrestle in the backyard, it'd be hot as hell, so we'd always have Fago sitting around in the shade. It was our thing. We'd pass that fucking 2-liter around like a 40. Joey went to another school because he was younger than John and I. Joey knew this kid from school named Jay. Jay had a cousin who was this banana-nosed kid from Hazel Park, the trashy city next to Ferndale. His name was Scratch Master T. He smoked banana peels and shit and said it got him high. We didn't understand, but the thing was, he had a rap studio. Okay, it was more like a 4-track tape recorder, but that was the shit back then. We decided to start a rap crew called the JJ Boys because all of our names started with J. Joe, John, Joey, and sometime Joey's homie Jay. We recorded our first JJ Boys track on Scratch Master T's 4-track called Party at the Top of the Hill. We're the JJ boys on the microphone stand, kicking it live with a Fago in our hand, the whole thing. A future generation of critics and marked out record industry weasels would have something to hate on. Our rap careers had just begun. Lacey fucking loved the cassette, and when I played it for him at school, everybody else loved it. By now, Lacey and his boys from the township had their own rap crew. They called themselves the Wrecking Crew, which of course was stupid because there were 50,000 other wrecking crews out there. Everybody called their rap group the fucking Wrecking Crew. Then again, back in the day, our breakdance crew was called the Electric Boogaloo Crew, so go figure. There was a lot of them too. Anyway, we were all friends, but in the hallway at school, Lacey and his boys would be like, JJ boys ain't shit, and we'd be like, fuck the Wrecking Crew. Actually, I still didn't cuss yet, so I'd say, frick the Wrecking Crew, no lie. There was a talent show coming up at the Township Recreation Center, and Lacey was like, you guys gotta sign up, you guys gotta sign up. I was like, nah, I ain't interested. I ain't down with doing no talent show. God, was I fucking stupid. That was a major fuck up. The talent show was actually sold out when I got there. I gave $5 to some guy sitting by the door so he'd let me sneak in. When I walked in, this place had more energy than I'd ever seen in my whole life. A little girl would sing and hit a high note, and the whole place would just blow up with people jumping out of their seats screaming, just like Showtime at the Apollo. The entire crowd was all black, and they all had that place fucking electrified. Then Lacey and his crew got up there, in these red and blue lights shining on them. They were all wearing red hoodies and red denim pants. This fat kid, Pat Kelly, started beatboxing, and Lacey started rapping, and that place just erupted in cheers. It was so fucking hype. I had never been to a concert in my life. This shit was blowing my mind. I called John and Joey that night and screamed, man, we blew it not doing that talent show. That was the end of the JJ boys, at least as far as I was concerned. We had missed our one big chance, the Township Talent Show. We were more into wrestling anyway. We changed the name of our wrestling crew from TTW to NAW, National All-Star Wrestling, although everybody thought it meant Neighborhood All-Star Wrestling. The big difference was that we were letting Lacey and other black kids from the township wrestle now. We were a little bit older and a little bit smarter and less stupid. Plus, it wasn't all tag teams anymore. It was all kinds of matches now. Our answer to Lacey and his Wrecking Crew's talent show was to host our very own NAW Wrestling Extravaganza. We saved up all our money and put up flyers all over the neighborhood. Come to NAW's Wrestling Extravaganza. My mom and John and Joey's mom were actually behind us 100%. We offered free hot dogs and free Fago to anybody who would come. My mom even knew a guy named Mick who had a bar band, and he agreed to play at our Wrestling Extravaganza. It was NAW's WrestleMania. So the night of the show, we had 50 people in Joey's mom's backyard, eating hot dogs, drinking Fago, and watching us 8th graders wrestle in this big-ass ring with real posts and everything. Joey wrestled as the White Tiger, our masked world champion. He also wrestled as the Rhino without the mask, but nobody knew it was him. I wrestled as Daryl Dropkick Daniels. John was known as the Terrible. He wore a hockey mask and was a big, tough, ruthless guy. He barely moved and barely sold anybody's moves. He just beat people down like a single road warrior. Lacey was the Jailbird Man. He wore black and white stripes like referee spandex suit. He was the one who was all aerial and everything. Snoopy and Arnell wrestled as a tag team called the Destroyers, and that's just what they did to everybody they fucking wrestled. They destroyed them. That night during Wrestling Extravaganza, the Jailbird Man won the belt from the White Tiger. It was fucking awesome. All while this bar band full of older guys played, like Bob Seger tunes. To me, this was just as hype as the talent show. The police even came by twice and told us to keep it down. The only thing that sucked was that I had told the band we'd give them $100, and I actually had the money too. Then somehow I fucking lost it. I swear to God, I felt so bad. They were like, it's alright, just pay us $1 so we can tell people we got paid to perform, thinking I never had the money to begin with. That sucked badly, cause I actually did have the $100. I remember saving up forever for that money. I had that fucking $100. Thinking about it now, somebody might have stole it out of John's drawer, but I had that fucking money ready to pay that band, and it was all legit, and somehow it just turned up missing, so we paid him $1 and felt like shit about it. Man, you don't understand. I'm so fucking sorry, I told him. I was so hyped on wrestling after that. Then John and Joey got a VCR at their house, and man, that was it. Fuck JJ, boys. Fuck rapping. Fuck all that shit. We had a VCR. That meant wrestling on tape anytime we wanted. We went fucking ballistic on that. God, we were so stale. Everything was getting stale, even the township. One Sunday morning, I was mad bored. John and Joey were up north visiting their aunt. So with nothing to do, I decided to go back to the township. Lacey wasn't home, but Snoopy, that crazy motherfucker, was leaning against a brand new car. You like my car, he asked? Where'd you get it, I asked. I stole it. The car had a front license plate that said Sweet Baby Blue. Dang, dog, I said, don't you think you should at least take that Sweet Baby Blue plate off? Don't you think it just makes the car all that more recognizable? Man, Snoopy couldn't give a fuck less. No, we're just gonna joyride it for a while. Come on, let's go. I jumped in a stolen car with him, and we went on a Sunday fucking drive with the screwdriver hanging out of